We are live.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
We just want to wait like 2 minutes to make sure that everybody who wanted to tune in is here. So we're just going to chit chat for a second, and then in a couple minutes, we'll get right into what's causing your low back pain.
Sarah, what are you guys doing this weekend?
Well, for those of you who may not know, I recently got a puppy. Officially have had Reggie now for 1 week. So
Nice.
Blake and I are just spending a lot of time with Reggie this weekend. What about you, Casey?
Probably the same with our dog, Callie. Probably try and get outside if we can. Got a kayak that I got to try out. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Looks like it's supposed to be nice.
Yeah, it's going to be 90.
That's very hot. But
yeah.
Good. We deserve it. We need the hot weather.
Hi, Heather. Where do you think you're going to go kayaking?
No idea. Definitely will probably ask for recommendations. Maybe Grafton was where we were thinking, but we'll see.
Dunham's Reservoir is also right up there. I highly recommend that as well.
Okay. Is that on the other side of Grafton?
It's like if you were going to Grafton towards the park, it's like right before it. There's a road that you turn on, and it's up on the left-hand side. So before the town of Grafton.
We'll definitely give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's a single-person kayak, though, so I'm going to be by myself.
Well, you'll enjoy it.
I know.
It's nice and calm.
Yeah, that's right. Not a bad thing.
Hey, Kelly. Good morning. All right, well, it is now 9:03, so we are going to officially get started. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second virtual workshop. We hope that everybody had a great week, and we are so happy that you could be with us this morning. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Casey.
And we are physical therapists at our Spiegeltown location. We also have one of our other therapists that is with us behind the scenes, Erin, and she's going to be monitoring the comment section. If you have any questions or if anything comes up that you want us to talk about, if you type it in the comment section, Erin's going to bring it to our attention, so we'll make sure that it is addressed. So again, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your morning to be with us. If you want to, right now, for the next couple minutes, grab a piece of paper and a pen. We are going to be going through some movements, and if you want to mark down how you felt with those movements, just so you can see how you are doing with each one, because each tells us a different story. You can take the time to do that right now, and then we'll be able to get started.
Perfect.
Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna. Hi, Sherry. All right, so let's get started. So we're talking about low back pain specifically. So that area of your body, there's a lot going on there. There's not only your lower back, which is the bottom of your spine, but also your hips all come together at that same location. So your lower back is the central area of your body that brings together the upper and lower parts of your body. There's several bones, which are called vertebrae, stacked on top of each other that have little discs in between them. And so in general, your lower back is designed to be for stability. That means it's supposed to be strong and not necessarily geared towards movement. Your lower back is also situated between two joints that are for mobility or are for movement. So they tend to alternate in your body as you go from toe to head or head to toe. And then your lower back in that lumbar area, it's for stability, so staying strong. The other joint, or one of the joints that surrounds it, or multiple joints, is your hip joints. So that's your hip and your pelvis, which is two ball and socket joints that come together on either side of your lower back. Those joints are the starting points for your legs that then go down towards the rest of your body. Your hips are designed to move in all planes of motion. So like we talked about before, they're mobility driven. So they're designed to move in all planes of motion to allow you to walk, run, squat, whatever you need to throughout your day. So when we're talking about lower back or hip pain, there can be a lot of things that go on because there's a lot of moving parts like we just talked about. So you could feel pain in your lower back, maybe in your tailbone, in the middle of your lower back. It can go around almost like a belt to either side of your back or one side more than the other. And then when we're talking about your hips, it could be in the front of your hip, in your groin area, or on either side of your hip, or even in the back is where the most common complaints of pain are. Now, something that can happen, since this is such a busy area, is nerves, which come out of those vertebrae area that we were talking about before. They can get pinched somewhere along the way, and they can lead to numbness or tingling or burning sensations that can go down into your legs, which is another sensation that you may feel. If you're having a flare-up of any of these pains, it's common that it prevents you from moving your back or your hips in certain ways. And then that can kind of start a cycle of this problem continuing if you're not moving as well as you may have been before. So muscles, nerves, tissues, they can all cause these pains. Some of the most common ones are core strength can be down, especially if you're in a lot of prolonged positions like sitting or standing for a long time. Obviously, sitting posture as well can be a contributor. Lack of movement, especially nowadays when we're all more or less inside a predominant amount of time, that can cause some things. There can be an acute injury. So think of the stereotypical, you go to pick up a really heavy box and then your back hurts afterwards. That's an acute injury. There can be a change to those joints over time that causes pain. Your sleep position can also contribute to it, or just overall decreased activity level like we talked about before. So what we want to do now is Sarah and I are going to take everybody through some movements to help understand how you can distinguish if a little ache or pain that you've been getting the last few weeks or last few months is something that maybe you need to take action on, or if it's something that you need to understand a little bit better. So what we want you guys to do is mark down if any of these movements are painful. One thing that we are doing at the conclusion of this live session is we are offering free screens afterwards, and we are going to be setting those up for next week afterwards. So if you want to comment your phone numbers in the comments down below, we can give you a call right after the conclusion of this to touch base regarding whether some of the things we go through today are something you need to act upon. All right, Sarah, are you ready?
And I just wanted to add in, for those of you who may have watched our upper body screen that we did about a month ago, I talked a lot about how your shoulder and your neck have a lot of carryover and they cross over. And similarly, your back and your hip act the same way. They're very close. And a lot of times people come in and they think that they may have this nagging back pain or nagging hip pain, but it could actually be the other. They feed off of each other a lot. And that's why if you come in for a screen, we take a look at the whole picture. We don't just look at just the back or just the hip, because they really do feed off of each other. So similar, I was just making the connection between our upper body and our lower body screen.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sarah.
Yeah.
All righty, ready?
In One
All
second.
right, so everybody that's following along at home, just make sure you have enough space, whether it's in your living room, your kitchen, whatever you need to, however you're watching us right now, give yourself enough space to go through some movements. So the first one that we're going to go through is called MultiSegmental Reflection. All that basically means is, can you touch your toes? So what I'm going to have Sarah do is put her feet together and have her arms out in front of her. And all you're going to do at home is try and reach down and touch your toes without bending your knees. So Sarah's going to take us through not only a few repetitions, but a couple different views so you guys can get an idea at home of how this should look. So again, her feet are together. She's trying to touch down her toes without bending your knees, and then come back up. So a couple of things we're looking for is, can you actually touch your toes, right? So if you are able to touch your toes, that's a good thing. Can you do it without bending your knees? Can you do it with, your lower back bending evenly, or is one area doing more work than the other? If it's really hard for you to get there, or this presents itself as pain, this would be one that you would want to mark down, and we'll come back to. So again, we're looking for if you have to shift onto one side versus the other, if one area is moving more than the other, or if this is a painful or causes you to have to work really hard to get there, this would be something that you would want to mark down. Anything you want to add, Sarah?
Yeah, and just think that this is very similar to if you were right now. I know I'm out in my garden weeding and doing activities like that. So this is something that we do a lot every day, even if we're picking something up off the floor. So you may already know, oh, I don't like to bend forwards, but it also could be how we're bending forwards. So
Right.
that's something that we can talk about more. We want to make sure we're bending with our legs. All of that would be things that we would guide to help you with outside of therapy as well.
Right. Ready for the next one? So again, just mark that one down, make a little check, whatever you need to. That's the toe touch. You just say, okay, that one hurt, or that one was tough for me. I'm going to mark that down, and we'll move on to the next movement. So again, we're going to start with feet together for the next one. So this one's called MultiSegmental Extension, or basically a back bend. So you're the opposite of a toe touch. You're trying to bend backward as much as you can. So Sarah has her feet together. She's going to either keep her arms at her sides, or if you are feeling really confident, you can even start with your arms overhead. And all you're trying to do is reach backwards as far as you can without changing the position of your feet. So what we're looking for here is similar to the last one. How far are you able to go? Are you able to get to certain ranges of motion without pain? Are you able to? Is your lower back or your mid back, is it curving evenly, or is one area doing a lot of work as compared to other areas of your back? Going back to that vertebrae conversation we had before, are all those vertebrae moving evenly? Again, we're talking about if this causes pain, or you have to try really hard to get there, or if you lose your balance. So if Sarah were to try and back bend and then she feels like she has to step backwards to catch herself, that would be something you would want to mark down. Sarah's going to go through a few more repetitions here from the side so you can see. Yep, so that would be one that you would mark down. Again, she's keeping her feet together, just trying to bend backwards as much as she can. So something you might see, just to touch back on this, is your pain? If you are getting pain, is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it causing some of those numbness, tingling symptoms we were talking about? Does it cause a throbbing? That's all stuff you would want to take note of. Anything to add, Sarah?
Yeah, just think when we're doing things at home, especially if they're overhead or we're reaching, that's where that back extension really comes into play. Yes, there's shoulder and neck movement, but if we're going to reach up, we have to be able to shift our hips forward and have that extension in our low back. So all of these movements do carry over to our day-to-day activities.
Right. So again, if that one caused you pain, or you felt like you had to try really hard to get there, or you lost that foot position that Sarah took us through, mark this one down. This is your back bend. Just write a check mark next to it and say, this one was painful, or whatever the case is. we're going to move on if you're ready, Sarah.
Yeah, and Sherry, I see that you said the back bend feels good and it feels like a good stretch.
Yeah.
Great. So, and as we dive in kind of to different things that could be causing back pain, sometimes certain movements do help make it feel better while others make it worse, which when we're in the clinic during our evaluations, that helps paint the picture for us as to what's going on.
Right.
So that's good. I'm glad you found one that made you feel better.
All right, so last one here. So we've done our toe touch and we've done our back bend. So now we have to see a different plane of motion, which is your ability to rotate. So what we're going to do is called MultiSegmental Rotation, or basically trying to rotate to your right and your left as far as you can. So again, Sarah's going to start with her feet together and her palms facing the camera. And she's going to start going to her right. She's going to try and rotate as far as she can to her right without losing that foot position. So think to yourself, basically, if you had to look at someone behind you without taking your feet away, that's what you're trying to do here. So things that we're looking at is, and Sarah's going to show us a few different views here that'll be helpful. So looking from the back, we're trying to see where is she getting that rotation from. So she could be getting it from her hips and her lower back. She could be getting it a lot from her shoulders. That's something that we would take note of if you were coming into the clinic to see if there's a difference from side to side. So again, with this one specifically, you want to make sure you know if, as we move into doing this to the left side, which Sarah, if you want to show a few repetitions of that, if one side feels harder for you to do compared to the other, you want to make note of that, as well as it feels like one side is painful compared to the other, or if you have to try a lot harder to get to the same position, maybe going to the left versus the right or vice versa, you would want to take note of that. With any movement, you think about some of the functional stuff that Sarah keeps coming back to. If we're not even from side to side, that can present itself as pain later on, or it can present itself as something that can cause a compensation that you don't want to occur because of the one side's not moving as well to the right as to the left, or the other way around.
And just so you guys can see, I'm going to do them both again with my back to you. I definitely can feel that one side is more difficult than the other. And you can probably see it. You can see that I don't get as far. You can see that I'm trying harder. I'm pushing my shoulder. I'm doing everything I can to try to get it as far. And if you feel like you're doing those same things at home, that would be what you would want to write down.
Right. So she's going to rotate to her left here. Yeah.
I go to the right.
And then to her right. Good. So when we're talking about asymmetry or differences from side to side, one example I have for you guys is I've had a patient in the past that worked as a toll booth operator. You think about when you go to hand that ticket to them, they're facing you and they're always turning to their left side, right? So if that's something that occurs, if we did this with that patient in the past, you would be able to make the assumption that she'd be able to turn a lot to her left, but maybe not so much to the right. So when you're thinking about the asymmetry or differences from side to side, it's really going to be dramatic when you do see it, or if it's that excessive effort that we talk about a lot, or even if it gives you pain. Again, this is your rotation from side to side. Just mark this down if it was any of those things: pain, a lot of effort, or it was different from side to side.
Yeah, or if you've been having pain for, like Casey said, whether it was weeks, months. I've had people who have had pain for years on and off. If you did one of those movements and you were like, oh, that was it, that just caused that same pain, definitely mark that down, because that could be the key to kind of what's causing that back pain.
Right. Anything else you want to add on that one?
No, I think I'm ready to transition us to some at-home tips.
Yeah, let's just review quickly before we get in there. So we have our 3 movements. We did our toe touch, we did our back bend, and we did our rotation from side to side. So Sarah's going to just show us 1 or 2 reps of each of those. So she has our toe touch, trying to reach down towards the toes. Remember our point is trying to keep those legs straight and bending evenly. Then from there, she can go right into the back bend. So again, you're just trying to reach as far back as you can. Yep. And again, marking down if this is painful. And then the last one we went through is that rotation. So all the starting points are the same. As Sarah's doing right now, it takes you 15, 20 seconds to go through these 4 movements, one to each side of the rotation, and to figure out, all right, if it's painful, if it's different from side to side, or if you have to try really hard for any of these, that might be something that you want to act on. So again, I want to just emphasize, if this is something that after we've gone through these movements and you marked it down, what we're doing is the first 5 or 6 people in the comments that leave their phone number, we're going to call you right after we're done with this and try and set up a screen with you for next week, or potentially sort through whether PT might be something you may want to travel down that road in the future. Ready to move on?
Yeah. So I just want to give some tips for everybody to use at home that may kind of help alleviate if you notice when you're sitting for a long period of time that that's what causes your back pain to start, or if you're standing for a long period of time that that's when your back pain starts. So we're going to first go over sitting. So, and I talked a little bit about this too in our upper body one because posture is so important. So I'm just going to tilt this down so you can see me. So one thing that we want to think about is having 90-degree angles. At our ankles, I gotta move back a little bit, sorry. At our ankles, at our knees. So I'm going to give you a side view here. And I've always said that when you're sitting, you want to sit with your feet flat on the floor. You don't want to be like this, or especially like this. All of that is going to give you this uneven asymmetry on your back. So you want to think feet are flat on the floor. You have this nice 90-degree angle here and here, and you're sitting upright. One other thing that you can do to help while you're sitting for a long period of time is you can take a towel, roll it up like this, and put it right in the small of your back. And that's just going to help while you're sitting to support your low back and keep you upright and take that stress off so you're not like this, rounded.
Right. And just something to note, if you're someone that spends a lot of time in the sitting position, whether you have to drive for a living or you work at a desk doing computer type work or anything like that, if you're spending a lot of time in one position, you want to make sure you're being efficient. So taking what Sarah just showed you there with the roll behind your back, that can change a lot of the mechanics in your spine if you just add that in. Because if you're spending 8-10 hours a day in one position, you want to make sure that you're in a positive one and not something that may be contributing to some of the symptoms we were talking about before.
Yeah, and then the next thing we talked about is if you maybe are in the reverse, you're not at a desk all day, but you're standing for long periods of time, which if any of you have come in, we have standing desks. We stand pretty much all day.
Yes.
So I use these tips myself. So this next one, and I'm just going to angle this down and back up. The first thing when you're standing, you want to make sure that you're not locking your knees out. So I'll show you from the side. You don't want to be hyperextended like this. That's going to put a lot of negative stress on your knees, and it can even have some effects on our circulatory system. So you want to not be in this hyperextended position. You want to just kind of be nice and relaxed. The second tip would be you don't want to have a narrow stance while you stand for a long period of time. I always tell my patients to embrace the power stance. Kind of widen your hips. That's going to help keep your hips level and help take the stress off your back. So you may see, I know a lot of people, especially notice Joe, when he's at his desk, he's in this position sometimes, typing his notes. It's just because that helps take the stress off your back when you're standing for a long period of time. Do you have anything you want to add, Casey?
Oh, explain that perfect. Power stance. Embrace it.
Embrace it. And one of the other things that Casey mentioned in the beginning was sleeping. You may notice at night when you're sleeping, you're tossing and turning, you can't find that comfortable position. One big tip that I give people is that, especially if you're a side sleeper, that you put a pillow between your knees. So I'm again just gonna turn this. For those of you who haven't seen our Spiegeltown clinic, you're getting to see it today.
Yeah, you're getting the grand tour.
So if you're laying on your side like this, you can take a pillow, you can put it right between your knees, and that's just going to help make you a little more comfortable. Sometimes, depending on how fluffy your pillow is, you may even be able to bend it. So what this does, now that I've shown you, when you're laying on your side, if you don't have that pillow between your knees, your top leg can kind of rotate down, and that's going to put some twist and some torsion on your back. So that pillow just helps keep your hips stacked and neutral, so there's no negative stress on your back, especially because we think when we sleep, we're in that position for 5+ hours. That's a long time to have that prolonged stress on your back.
Yeah. Sarah, do you want to show them the laying completely on your stomach with the pillow under their hips variation they might want to try? So if you're a stomach sleeper out there, this is something you might be able to try. So when you think about it, if you're laying on your stomach, especially some of our mattresses out there are pretty soft, you're not really going to be laying in a neutral position if you're laying on your stomach. It's going to extend at your spine. So Sarah's going to just give us the tour here. And so we're going to talk about how you can use that pillow if you're a stomach sleeper. A lot of times if you lay in that position for a long period of time and you're extended, that might cause some of these symptoms we were talking about before. So Sarah's going to just put the pillows basically across where your belt line would be. Right. And then you just lay right on top of them. So now, if you can see her spine, it's not in that extended position. It's flat, or it's in a neutral position, which is going to prevent some of those symptoms from coming on as compared to the flat there. And the table she's laying on is pretty hard. So your mattress at home is more than likely going to be softer than that. So you want to make sure you're focusing on that, especially if you already have some of these lower back or hip symptoms we're talking about.
And another option, if you are on your stomach and you find that the pillows under your hips are comfortable, you want to make sure that your feet are not jammed up either. You could slide another pillow under your feet or have them right off the edge of the table like I did, because if your feet are cramped up and not in a good position, you're not going to be very comfortable like that either. So just as one extra tip for that. And then my last tip for everybody, especially now that it's getting nicer outside and we all want to be outside, get our vitamin D because we can get it now in the Northeast. When we're going to be more active, like if we go for a hike or a walk, you want to make sure that you are getting a good warm up. You're taking some time to do some stretches because you do want to make sure that you're not injuring yourself. I know that I normally am not a winter hiker, and I've gone on a couple hikes this year. And that first few hikes, I was really sore after, and I needed to stretch. And if we go from not doing something to doing something like that, we need to make sure we're taking care of our body and doing all the right things so that we're not putting extra stress on our back at all.
Right. I think another thing to add in there is, especially with how everyone's way of life has somewhat changed in the last few months. If you go from, being in your house all the time, or maybe you were going into the office and then now you're working from home and you're spending a lot of time there sitting, and then you just want to jump back in to all the activities you might have been doing before, whether it's going to the gym or running or walking or hiking, like Sarah talked about. A lot of times you have to make sure that you are making your body ready to do those movements. It's hard to go from 0 to 100 that quickly, especially just because the weather gets better. We have to make sure we're protecting our bodies.
Yeah. And I did just want to go back. I saw, Kelly, that you mentioned when we were doing the turning, when you were turning to the right, you felt like you were turning more from your hips. But when you turn to the left, you seem to be turning more with your upper body.
Right.
So that can tell us that obviously there's that asymmetry side to side, but that also would indicate to your physical therapist that there is something that's causing that restriction on that side when you turn to the left, and your body's compensating and just trying to turn from the upper body.
Yeah.
So again, that asymmetry is huge when we look side to side, and that would help kind of say, what do we need to stretch? What do we need to strengthen? It helps target those areas.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
All right.
Casey, did you have any other tips that you wanted to add in?
No, I think you hit all the major ones. The only one that I try to add with anybody that comes in with symptoms in this area, and if they are someone that sits a lot, is to try and break up their day more. So if you can get up and standing, even if you're working from home, if you can find a way to manufacture, there's another video on our main page a few weeks ago about at work posture or working from home posture that Joe and Aaron did. That might be one that you would want to look at to give yourself almost a workstation that you can go from sitting to standing very easily. That would help you not to spend too long in any one of these positions to prevent some of these symptoms from coming on.
Yeah, and I guess my last tip would be, and I tell, again, if you have ever worked with me, you know that this is my saying, it's not a no pain, no gain scenario. You don't want to keep pushing through the pain. That's not how these low back injuries or hip injuries work. I always say our pain is like the bear. Keep poking the bear over and over again. The bear's going to get mad.
Right.
So you don't want to keep doing that. You want to try to figure out what's causing that, why, and then that would be something we could help you with here to make sure you're not avoiding it, but in the beginning, not continually to make your hip or back angry, and we can kind of work through what's causing that so then you can get back to your regular activities.
Right. All right. You want to move on here?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to wrap things up here. So again, just going back through again, the toe touch, the back bend, and the rotation that we did. If you marked any of those down as painful, or you had to have a lot of excessive or increased effort, or there was a difference from side to side that you felt, it may be something that is worth looking into, especially if you mark multiple of those movements down. It would definitely be something that you're going to want to address. So if after going through this, you decide that it is something you want to address, again, we are offering free screens in person to help you gauge, what is the cause of what's going on. Like Sarah touched on, what exercises or manual techniques do we need to kind of reset and reinforce better movement so that you can get out and do that walking or hiking or whatever the case is for you. And it's not going to be something that as the weather gets better and we're doing more, that it prevents you from doing that stuff. So we want to kind of nip it in the bud before we transition back into all those activities to make sure that it doesn't prevent you from doing them. So again, if you leave your phone number in the comments, Sarah and I are going to be on the phones after this is over to give you a call and see if anybody wants to set up one of these free screens in our clinic or at our other location in South Troy to address some of these issues. So thank you guys for taking the time on your Saturday morning. I know it might be somewhat early for some of you, but this video will stay on our Facebook. So if you have a friend or someone you feel like it might help and you want to pass it along, that'd be much appreciated. It'll be up there. You can watch it at any time and you can follow along with your sheet whenever you need to. So everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. Again, thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. Anything to add, Sarah?
Yeah, just it's supposed to be very warm. So make sure you're staying hydrated and staying cool. Hydration is key right now. So
yeah.
All right. Everybody have a great weekend.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.